Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day 2 of our Travel Trends AI Summit. Today is the big day, of course. This is our, yesterday we did show and tell with all of our demos. And today we are going to be back to back with keynotes, with panels, and with fireside chats. And I thought it would be great to start off with a fireside chat with the person who inspired me to create our very first AI Summit. And that is Shane O'Flaherty from Microsoft. Welcome back, Shane. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having you. Great to see you as always, and go Blue Jays.
Thanks, buddy. Sorry about your Cubbies, but yeah, Jays are going all the way this year. Now, he's based in Chicago, but he's actually a Giants fan. So, but Shane, tell everyone about your role at Microsoft, because you're part of WTTC. You're a big deal. So just tell everybody a bit about the role that you have at Microsoft and your specialty within travel.
Yeah, and I come from the airline, hotel space, non-tech. Been at Microsoft for over 10 years, which is hard to believe, and the massive changes that happened in the last 10 years. But I run their hospitality division, so I work with all of the hotel companies, cruises, travel agencies, GDS companies around the world on how to use technology to enhance the customer experience, the employee experience, operations, and then how does Gen AI fit into this new world order over the last 3 years. AI has been around for a long time, but Gen AI specifically, how does it fit into their world order? And that's where we're working with all of the hotel cruises companies around the world. So super exciting stuff, and lots of changes over the last couple of years, and embrace of the technology. So it's been an interesting ride that we're still early stages with the enterprises, but the tech is there. It's just the moving through with the enterprise has been an interesting journey, as always, regardless.
Yeah. Well, let's start there. Let's start with, I know we're going to talk about hospitality, and Stuart, our good friend from Forbes Travel Guide, will be joining us later this morning as well. And we actually, based on the interest from both our attendees and from speakers, we actually expanded both days. We were supposed to do a half day yesterday, and now we've gone from doing like 8 till 6 on effectively both days. And so we adjusted some of the sessions. We thought I'd still kick it off with Shane and then pick up the hospitality conversation with Stuart, because we have Travis's keynote coming up after this. And I just wanted to also start too, Shane, you know how important partners are, and we obviously got an amazing group of partners for this year, and we just wanted to acknowledge them. Obviously, Chore Radar, but all of our gold sponsors. We've got Liquid Spark, who's joined us. We've got an amazing roster of supporters, and obviously Microsoft in the mix as well. So tell everyone from what's changed in the past year, because you were the one that said to me, we got to focus on customer service, because that was where you're seeing the biggest impact, and marketing. And so you were highlighting some of the tools that many people were using for drafting emails. And obviously you knew the roadmap at Microsoft. Yeah. And as we stand here today, you guys have got so many more use cases in the past year, which is what this conference is all about. So tell us just overall first, please, Shane, what the most significant changes have been in the past year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like when I think of year one, I think and again, Gen AI was kind of a toy that people were playing with. Then, like you said, last year it was a tool, and now it's become essentially a partner. And we've kind of coined the phrase frontier firm. That's from a Microsoft perspective. And then as you look at organizations, how do you have these kind of human-led organizations and AI agents throughout? To drive more value, to drive more operational efficiency, to get away from the mundane task. So essentially being a partner of an individual, we call it co-pilot at Microsoft. So companies are looking at each of their departments, sales, marketing, HR, whatever the frontline workers, whatever the area, and seeing how do we bring AI into that to move away from the mundane. I think Matthew Upchurch from Virtuoso says it great. He says automate the predictable and humanize the exceptional. So it's kind of human-led, tech-enabled type of discussion we're having with organizations. But gone has been not gone, but they're still doing various use cases that drive tremendous value. But now they're looking inside the corporation and say, okay, from a marketing, sales, how do we use this in our day-to-day job? And how do we drive more efficiency? So we're seeing better use cases in all of those areas, and still at the it's 100 yards to go. Everyone's probably at the 20, 30-yard line, 70 yards to go. There's a long journey ahead. The tech is here. It's just kind of adoption, cultural changes, and making sure that they recognize it's human-led, from that perspective. So we've kind of gone through 3 phases. You have the human with the assistant, the human kind of led agents, and then kind of the agent operated, which is the agentic side. But human-led. So those are kind of the 3 areas that we focus on, and I think most companies are in human with assistant, that's co-pilot. But the technology for all the three areas. And that's been super interesting in the last, probably last 6 months.
Yeah, that's great. Now, there's three areas that I want to get into in our conversation, and the human-centered AI is part of it. But I just wanted to establish one thing for all of our listeners and attendees, and that is that Shane's background is in hospitality. He's met Steve Wynn. He knows a lot of people in the hospitality industry. He used to run Forbes Travel Guide before. So he really gets the hotel and hospitality space, and then combine that with his 10 years of service at Microsoft. He understands technology and hospitality incredibly well. So for those of you who are joining for that specific intention, I want to make sure that we cover the types of questions. And obviously I'll be looking at the chat as well if there's anything else I can get in while we have our time together. But there was three that I was really focused on, and it was certainly tied to the conversations we were having yesterday. So the first one I wanted to ask Shane about is hyper-personalization, and this idea of what does that look like with AI? Really, the key question is, what do travelers actually want in terms of personalization? So I'm keen to know, I know you work with the various cruise lines as well, but which are essentially floating hotels in many ways. Yeah. So the experience is quite similar. But tell everyone what hyper-personalization looks like going into 2026 from Microsoft's point of view with AI and hospitality.
Yeah, I think when you look at decentralized ID, self-sovereign identity, or digital wallets, for lack of a better word, and you see what Google has and Apple has and what's that coming out, I think that's the most exciting part. And the government is pushing these issues to move to digital passports, digital wallets. But just the idea that I can go into a hotel, theoretically, I can tap, and then my information goes up, my credit card, my ID, and then also I can write in a little thing of why I'm staying there. So all of a sudden, the hotel then has information to personalize your journey, which they may have not had before. And then you add in, coming after that is then I'll have my own AI assistant. Hotel will have their own AI assistant. So when I arrive, the two will be talking, and then content will be generated to personalize my journey based on the reason I'm there. So how does hotels provide me, or cruises, could be an airline, snack size content that proactively or anticipatorily makes my journey a better journey? Because today when I go in a hotel, maybe I have a digital key, and your digital key essentially it was your digital wallet in the future. But then I'm on my own, kind of have to call the concierge. So how do they proactively orchestrate your journey in real time to make sure that you have the best journey possible? And if you dine at a restaurant in the hotel, maybe they can send you some information on a restaurant outside the hotel to make your journey a better journey. So all of these are areas of growth. And then, but the core around these modern day customer data platforms is something that everyone is working on. Different industries have been far more aggressive in this area, but make sure that they understand who I am and then get me right, not get it right.
Cool. And I know there's a number of questions coming up here that I'll bring into the conversation as well in a moment. But one of the things when it comes to personalized, well, actually, there's a couple of them that are on the same topic. So one of the things when I frame the question about what travelers actually want, there's certain things that will delight and surprise them that the platforms can know about them, but there's another aspect, which is the human side. So maybe I'll just jump to that now, which is actually going to be my third question, because what people are asking you is, how do you balance, surprise and privacy? There's a fine line between those two. And that key ingredient in travel is that element of surprise. So how do you guys look at that as far as what do you automate? What do you personalize based on the information you know about someone, and what do you leave to the human element?
Well, I mean, we're with decentralized ID, ultimately the human permissions other companies into their world, so that the permission hopefully will turn this way as opposed to all the data on the other side. So that's one area. But we're big promoters of, and I don't think the industry as a whole, hospitality has been a little more challenged just due to the franchisees operation, but also investing in technology for their frontline worker. And then how do we get information from above, so your CRM, all the way down to the frontline worker? So when you arrive at the hotel, it's quick. There's a snack size photo of you, and then some salient information that you've already permissioned in that they have on you. And then they're welcoming you in a way that it's more human centric, as opposed to them looking down, and typing in and figuring that out. So we're trying to provide the frontline worker also with tools that allow them, like basically assistants that allow them to learn and understand, and then also kind of with the turnover in the industry, how do we get people up to speed more? And computer vision on your screen now, so it actually looks at what you're doing on your screen. And I'm like, hey, if someone comes in and says, hey, I want to pay with points and then miles, or points and then cash, and the person doesn't know what to do, well, the AI assistant on their dashboard can say, hey, toggle back a screen, up right corner, add this, add that. So we're providing tools to make sure we're superpowering frontline workers. We talked last year about call center agents, and then corporate workers, to allow them to be more strategic, more human-centric, as opposed to heads down, it's heads up. And, we're in a business that makes people happy. So how do we do that?
Yeah. And you bring up an important point, and I appreciate you going back to that, which is that the role of controlling your data. And this is actually a session that I've seen Shane present on a couple of times. And actually last year at Focusrite, he presented with Jillian Jones. Jillian Jones is going to be with us about 4:55 Eastern time today. There's a session, Trust and Identity, the role of agentic AI. It'll be her and Chris Brown, who runs Bonafide.ai, another really exciting AI startup as well. So we'll get more into detail on that particular topic then, but obviously it'll tie back to what Shane just shared with us, because not only is Microsoft, but Shane specifically is a big advocate of this, so that you have control of what information you're going to be sharing with companies. So I think that's a really important point. The other thing I want to ask you about is the operation side, which is the less, I guess, sexy part of travel.
Right.
And it's all the back end stuff that people don't see. But in terms of the operations, whether it be staffing or supply chain, what are you seeing right now that hospitality brands are leveraging in terms of AI?
Well, I think number one, from the employee perspective, kind of training assistants, training roles that are helping them. We talked last year about just automating inbound inquiries. If there's an inbound inquiry from a group perspective, how do you automate that into, let's say, a CVent system? How do you automate that entire process? Because the AI agent can, of course, respond, but it also can take information, and then the agent creating specific agents for specific tasks inside your hotel. And that's kind of the human-led agent operator, where they're autonomously operating, or looking through your books, or invoices come in, it can process the invoice, send the money out. Human, of course, has to approve it all. So everyone is looking at, how can I save time, energy from my staff to optimize my staff as best as possible, and then provide a better experience for that guest. So I think from an ops perspective, they're looking at a property level, small, medium, large size properties, and seeing how AI tools can optimize, and then providing their individuals with tools. We have Teams Frontline Worker as an example, but it's a tool that allows them to have one pane of glass, walk into work, and everything they need for their job is embedded into that pane of glass. And I think that's an area of growth for the industry as a whole, because they have not invested as much on employee tech as they have on consumer tech. And I think we talked about that last year. And then the whole AI search is changing, distribution's changing, all top of funnel. It's becoming more retailing like, so consumers are actually able to buy much stuff in advance. And then how does that work? And what's that generation of AI search? How's that changing? Because that's rapidly growing, and that's going to change distribution dramatically as well, which I think is super interesting for hotels.
For sure. And I'll make sure to bring that up, because we have an all-star panel lined up with Vaughn Davies, and Jesse's back with us, but also obviously Stuart. So I'm going to bring that up. And I see some of the questions here when we get into it with Stuart in a bit. But there's one other question I wanted to ask you, and then I obviously want your big kind of takeaway for 2026, because I know I learned a lot from you, and I was really keen for you to be here so that all of our global attendees can. And the one other question I did have, though, is around responsible innovation. Because I know this is something that is constantly a question for OpenAI and Microsoft. You guys have a deep partnership, and so it is one of those things that I wanted to address off the top, because there are organizations. And when I invited to give keynotes, I did at ATC and talked about AI. One of the big things that comes up is all the risks, the concerns, and data privacy, and there's all these reasons why not to. But obviously, we all know, and the reason we're here is there's so many reasons why you should be using it. So when companies are saying to you, like, what is a responsible way to approach this? How do you answer that question? Because clearly you have global corporate clients that have concerns about data and privacy. So is that getting in, creating your own AI policy for your company? What does responsible innovation look like from your point of view?
Yeah, and we're members of Responsible AI, and Microsoft is the world's largest, I guess, even security team as well, because they're getting smarter with AI. So from a security perspective, how do you be always ahead of the curve? So I think it's looking at enterprises, your data, all your endpoints, and that's why we're big fans of making sure that everyone is on one type of enterprise platform, as opposed to people using some of the consumer-based applications, because that's where people get hacked, and then they sit inside organizations for a long time. But I mean, first and foremost, it's around this human-centered approach that Microsoft is taking, and AI is essentially the kind of co-pilot, we call it in life, for you and providing, the best of breed assistance to you in your daily tasks as a consumer, and then also from an employee perspective. But from an ethical side, it's top of mind for us, for Microsoft, because we're one of the thought leaders in the space, and we re-announced our partnership yesterday with OpenAI for many, many years to come. So I think it's paramount to us to ensure, from an ethical perspective, that we're moving forward in that is more of a human-centric approach, but understanding that everyone has to take care of their data security, privacy associated with their consumers, because the bad guys are using the tools that the good guys are using. So how do you stay ahead of the curve on all that?
Yeah, that's great, Shane. And one last thing I need to ask you, since the topic for many of our discussions is agentic AI in 2025 going into 2026. It's the closing session that we had today. We had several agentic AI demos yesterday, and it'll be a recurring theme throughout the day. And I want to get your take on this, where you think agentic AI is going to take us in 2026.
I think what we're going to see is a lot more use cases around, let's say it's a turn time of an airplane. How do I build agents around each stakeholder that manage that and drive more efficiency? I think even in the hotel space, again, the things that work 24/7 on your behalf, the agentic side, these autonomous agents, I think we'll start to see more use cases. I think we'll see more use cases in 2027, but I think we're moving on the right path, because I think many of the enterprises now have set up their enterprise data structure in a way that allows for this in a secure way. So I think we'll continue to grow. I think first and foremost, I think individuals in each department, whatever you're in each of these enterprises, should be using it on the day-to-day basis. I think that's kind of our push now, is you should be using it today. And then once you understand it, then start building agents that help you perform your task in a more efficient way.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shane. I know we're right at time. We got a few more minutes before our next session. I wanted to say a big thanks to you for being a continued friend, supporter of Travel Trends, and obviously making the time for this today. I know you're in Washington at a Thayer investment conference, so you kindly agreed to join live, despite the fact that it was going to be tricky for you. So that's one of the reasons we got it in early this morning. So awesome. Big thanks to you, Shane.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for everything you do to help the industry kind of move forward.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I'll see you again in a few weeks. And just for all of our listeners, I highlighted some of our gold sponsors. So obviously Liquid Spark, but Olafly, Pay Compass, Rail Bookers, Lemax. You're going to hear from all of them today in the sessions. So I strongly encourage you to check out the agenda and make sure that you've saved yourself a seat, even though we'll make sure that there is one there for you. But just make sure you are registered for all the sessions that you want to attend today. And thanks again, Shane. And I look forward now to bringing Travis on the main stage. And I'll see you guys again in the next couple of hours. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.